We've been talking about injustice the last couple weeks, which we've defined as the things in our world that are not right, unfair, or unequal. It's painful to experience injustice, and it makes us all ask the question, why doesn't somebody do something? It's even worse when injustice is going on, systematic or constant. Last week we talked about how God sees and cares about what's happening. God is anti-injustice, and part of following Jesus means we care about the things that He cares about, and we care enough to do something. So if you are experiencing injustice or have experienced injustice, what do you do? What do you do when you feel like you're all alone in it? With that in mind, I want to tell you a true story about 3 friends and what happened to them. There was a Babylonian king named Nebuchadnezzar who was very powerful and had conquered and captured Israel. One day he built a giant golden statue that stood 90 feet tall and ordered everyone to bow down and worship the statue whenever they heard certain music playing. If they chose not to do as ordered, they would be thrown in a blazing fire. The Bible tells us that there were 3 Jewish men named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego who were worshipers of God and refused to bow down to the statue. You could probably guess that the king wasn't thrilled by this news, and he ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be brought to him immediately. He gave them one more chance to bow down and worship the statue when the music played, or they would be thrown into a fire. But these 3 men stood their ground. They believed that God could rescue them, but even if He didn't, they didn't want to turn from their devotion to Him. What an incredible example of courage and faith. So, of course, the king in full rage mode now orders them to be burned 7 times hotter than usual. The 3 men were tied up and thrown into the fire. The furnace was so hot that the soldiers who threw them into the fire died simply because they went near it. Now look, I get none of us have been through fires recently or thrown into them. And many of us do know what it feels like to be treated unfairly, to be discriminated against for our skin color, treated like we're less than because of our family's finances, held back because of our gender, considered less important because of something we have absolutely no control over. And if you've experienced this, you know it can be scary, frustrating, and sad. These guys, I'm sure, felt all those things. Now let's continue with the story, and I want you to see what happens next after they were in the fire. Check this out. Now, there are many Bible scholars and researchers who have opinions about this story and who the 4th man in the fire was. Was he God? Was he Jesus? Was it an angel or someone else? I don't know the answer, but one thing is clear. In a moment of extreme injustice, they were not alone. God did not abandon them or leave them to suffer on their own. And in the same way, you are never alone when you face injustice. So just let that sink in. God cared about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and made sure that they weren't alone in their suffering or their injustice. Did things change eventually? Yes. Did the laws change as a result of the injustice? Yes. But don't miss what happened even while they were suffering. God cared for them. And in the same way, God cares about you and doesn't want you to be alone when you face injustice. Maybe you hear this story and you feel the injustice part. Maybe you're so tired, so hurt, so burned by things that you've experienced that you don't know where to turn. I want you to know that you don't have to be alone. God is with you. He hears you. If you're processing that for the first time or just don't know what to do next, here are some steps for you to consider. Talk to Jesus. He cares maybe more than you realize. Share your feelings of frustration, confusion, or hurt. And then remind yourself over and over that you're not alone. Remember that He will send others to be with you. Talk to a small group leader or a trusted friend or adult, even if you think they won't understand. Keep talking until someone does. Consider taking your family talking to your family about getting help from a professional counselor or a mentor that can help process the injustice that you've experienced. Some of you, however, may have heard that story and thought, I really haven't experienced injustice. Does that mean I'm like the evil king who caused it? Maybe, maybe not. Or perhaps you're like the people in the crowd who stood and watched. We all participate in injustice in some way or another, often by allowing it to happen while we watch. Here are some ways that we might have done it. Laugh along when we hear a racist joke. Watch people get bullied but don't say anything. Listen to music that's degrading to women. Shop from stores that use child laborers to create their product. If that's you, I want you to know you can talk to God about that too. In Psalm 139, the writer opens up and asks God the most beautiful question. Check this out. Start here. Ask God to help you see the ways that you've participated in injustice. This is so important because the truth is, some of the people you care about most, your friends from school or your small group, have been on the receiving end of injustice. And maybe for the first time you see it differently and you care differently because of how it affects them. Let it become personal for you. When injustice happens, it is painful, but you don't have to do something alone. Not only is God with you, but so are the people in your small group. That's why we have these groups, like The Landing. We want to have a group of people who are for you, all right? This may sound like a lot right now, and I get it. Even if you don't talk to your whole group tonight, right after you watch this, I hope that you'll talk to a leader. They signed up for this because they want to be here for you. And maybe today they can be a real human reminder that when you experience injustice, you don't have to face it alone.